has automation has come in, and that has changed people's jobs. Some people have lost jobs because of that, and we need to retrain them to do something else. So this is how the economy works. And if this means we need to retrain some people who are currently employed because of the current marijuana laws, we will simply have to help them just like we would help others acquire new skills and new skill sets for them to get ready for the 21st century.
You're right. It's really the same argument that's being used against global warming or, empower the miners because we need more, fossil fuels. We don't need that. We need renewable energy, and we need a greener energy system. And the argument says, well, what are we going to do with all these people? Are going to put them out of work? And the argument is you put them into work into other jobs that are equally right. So I understand it's the same. There's a parallel there in those arguments. I mean, I thought you were going to actually say that it's like they do in other things. Economy's got to grow. It's got to have its own organicness to a certain degree, which means what's that? Evolution is involved in that. All right, from a scientific standpoint, what are your thoughts on cannabis being a Schedule I drug?
We need. I would like to treat it like alcohol. I would like to decriminalize marijuana. And as a scientist, I see the medicinal benefits. We have so much of opioid abuse, and the prescription drugs have for painkillers has created an epidemic. And marijuana could be an alternate to the pain medication. That is, and there are a number of scientific studies that have shown that there are medicinal effects, good effects of marijuana. And I believe in personal freedom, and by regulating it, I think is the right thing to do.
What do you think
Okay, good, Joe.
What do you think about people driving after they've used marijuana?
Yeah. I was going to say like this. Oftentimes when they do legalize, along with that comes a per se number of some kind of, what is deemed per se operating under the influence of marijuana. Do you have any thoughts on that from a scientific perspective? Do those numbers have any meaning, and should Michigan embrace and continue to study this perceived per se number should they legalize?
Yeah, well, look, you can drink and drive, and so there should be a similar approach. We need to treat it like alcohol, and there needs to be regulations, and there needs to be laws and limits for public safety. Public safety is ultimately essential and important. And I would advocate that everything that we do in legalizing and decriminalizing is done with public safety in mind.
Have there been any studies that have proven that marijuana use impairs someone's driving? No? I do not have access to those studies, or I can't recite you something top of my head. But I was actually asking Jamie. I think I was looking at him. It didn't really translate well.
It's an interesting issue. Listen, it's an interesting issue, and I think that a lot of times there's, I don't know, and it's an interesting topic, and if Michigan's going to have to probably decide. They're trying to figure this out now. They're doing some studies. The swab mouthing, in 5 of the counties. I don't even know.
Impaired Driving Safety Commission is also.
At the end of the day, I think AAA produced a report. AAA Insurance Company, which is, it doesn't really have a dog in the fight, so to speak. And they concluded after, every state, and all the insurance claims and blood draws and things that they were involved with, reading reports, they could not say that there was a number. That they could conclude with that was indicative of impairment. It varied too great between individuals, And what they suggested is getting like drug recognition experts, But you know, I'm a defense lawyer. I think that's like voodoo science. You might as well. Like that's the farthest thing from like quote unquote science. You know what I mean? Where the determination, you know, but I understand it's a challenging situation. I think from a public safety perspective, there's a lot of information or misinformation, and it becomes a power struggle. I think between law enforcement and, you know, it's an issue of freedom, really. You know, they're giving you know, if it's true that they give you back a little piece of it with the possession, you know, able to possess it and ingest it, blah blah blah. You know, and no one that we in this community, anyone in the community advocates driving while impaired. That's not a thing. Nobody wants that to happen, right? But there's a distinction of coming to that conclusion, you know, and if that's something that is prevalent at all, even, you know. But what are your thoughts? Any comment to that?
Well, you know, again, there are some studies done in Colorado and in California and Washington. We have to take a look at those studies. But you know, but I, you know, that's something that needs to be looked at. But public safety is absolutely critical while we protect personal freedom, and while we, you know, relook at this. I think decriminalizing it would be very, very beneficial. It would cut down some of our prison and costs, but it needs to be done with public safety in mind.
Fair enough. What do you think about parents who use marijuana and the protections of child custody?
Again, just because they you know, use marijuana is not enough of a reason. But again, there are good parenting, and you know, safety of the child needs to be considered. And as long as child safety is not in danger, then I don't see a problem.
Right, like the whether they use oxycodone, whether they drink alcohol, whether they're prescribed something or smoke marijuana, that's not the basis by which you judge their parenting. It's their actual parenting or whatnot. It's, you know, where we it's you know, but these are, you know, some of the areas that I think are going to be interesting for the leadership of Michigan regarding marijuana are in these areas. It's going to be in the giving leadership into driving. You've got the parenting issues, as we're kind of, you know, kind of broaching here. There's employment issues, government housing, government employees.
Well, that's a good question for Sri, is the employment issue. He's an employer. I bet he has an interesting
what are your thoughts
perspective
on
that.
We're really
again, you know, as long as a person is able to do his or her job competently, so there should be no employment discrimination. Based on, I'm talking about after marijuana is legalized,
right.
That an employer should not be able to discriminate hiring based on marijuana use, provided that the person and the job that is involved can be done safely and competently.
You know, and a lot of times, you know, I know you're saying for hiring, even more so once they have the job, to be fired just for that. Like, you know, it should have to be some, well, depending on the employment contract, of course, if it's a, you know, at will versus just cause employee. But if it's for an employee, you know, just cause, that shouldn't be the reason alone, just because they may test positive for marijuana, right? It'd have to be some kind of identifiable behavior that was, you know, like the impairment or whatnot, or, you know, not functioning right, or...
I mean, look at alcohol, the same thing.
Right.
If someone is impaired with alcohol and it's interfering with the person's job, that will not be tolerated by an employer. You know, same way, I think it goes the same way. That regardless of a person's personal lifestyle, what should be judged is based on what the needs of the jobs are, and can the person competently perform the job. And the person should not be discriminated based on their personal life.
I guess
and the personal choices they make.
Absolutely. And we've talked to various candidates, and I think I was at an event, I think, out in, Am I Legal, as I think, sponsored it. It was at a nice restaurant. It was, and Dana was there, I think, it was at a, anyways, it was a while back, but as we look at the, future of things and how this is going to play out, I noticed that, in your economic thoughts and perspective, that marijuana could play a tremendous, or cannabis could play a big role in the shift in the economy. And I think, it's interesting, because I think like the governor's thing's going to be more, they ask that question more than like a legislator, I think. I mean, they may have had some ideas, but obviously the executive branch can lead and, kind of corral the, and if you get the right people in the legislature, that's how you get things done, right? But it's really a leadership position of where the economy is going to go. The direction it comes from the executive branch. There's this other whole thing going on of the hemp, and the whole, Michigan could be a leading candidate in creating this, returning to the, its industrial revolution, putting people back to work, industrializing hemp. And a lot of people understand that, but it's like, we've been far behind with the implementation of the state's program regarding that as well. Is that something that ever crosses your mind to, as another potential revenue source for Michigan?
Yeah, you know what? Right now, we are heavily relied on the auto industry. And the auto industry is impacted considerably when economy goes south. And it is important that Michigan diversifies, and we encourage other industries, pharmaceutical, healthcare, biotechnology, alternate energy, as well as cannabis industry. This is something where it will help us diversify our economy, and it will make it less dependent on auto. And future growth has to come from service industry, and future growth has to come from technology-based industries. So we need to, diversify because otherwise, the economic downturn hits us disproportionately. I mean, Michigan has a much higher impact of recession than any other state, and we need to, build on that and make, And I, having run small businesses, having gone through and suffered through recessions, I'm battle tested. So I think someone with my background, scientific background, my background in business and financial savvy, can do a lot of good to the state of Michigan and to carve out and build a future for us and our citizens. And I worry about the career politicians who have never created a single job and have no financial expertise, never having run a business, balanced a budget. I worry about someone like that in charge of our state when the next recession comes.
Jamie Lowell wants to ask you a question, but before he does, let me selfishly ask you this. Do you take issue with the following statement or phrase, the Michigan State Police Forensic Science Division? Does that cause you grief or problems?
Well, yeah, and I think we have seen reports where science isn't followed. We've seen reports where, the bureaucracy sometimes overtakes the science. And sometimes innocent people suffer as a result of that. And, as a scientist, being a scientist, I believe in practicing good science, and I believe in data. Data is important. Facts are important. What we hear from Washington, D.C. and through our current president is, not really understanding science, not believing and not making decisions based on science.
Or even what facts are. I mean, we there's no vetting of, there's no bar anymore. Like once you throw science out, there's no